Today, with the help of an anvil and a forge, I'm going to turn this railroad spike into this knife. Check it out. Alright, I've got the spike to a forging heat. It's about 2000 degrees. The first thing I'm going to do is start drawing out the steel to form the blade. To do this, I'll be using this 3-pound cross-peen hammer. It's got a cross-peen on one side, and on the other side I've modified it to have what's called a diagonal peen. And it's that diagonal peen that I'll be using to draw out the blade. In this close-up you can see the waves that I've put in the steel. Because I'm using the diagonal peen hammer, the waves are perpendicular to the blade. This has the effect of stretching the steel out and making it thinner. While I'm putting these waves in the steel, you can see that the anvil has the effect of flattening out the waves that were on the other side. It's a very efficient way to draw out the steel. As you can see here, drawing out the blade requires a lot of hammering. Through the magic of editing, I've edited out the time that it takes to reheat the railroad spike each time, and I've speeded up the video here just because it's not that exciting to see all that hammering in real time. To hold this railroad spike while I'm forging it, I'm using these tongs that I made just recently. They're working out really well. I must say it's a lot of fun to use a tool that you've made yourself. At this point, I'll be switching over to what's called a rounding hammer. This particular hammer weighs about 2 pounds, and on one side it's got a flat face, and on the other side it's got a rounded face, and that's what I'll be using from now on. This will still have the effect of drawing out the blade, but at the same time I'll be smoothing it out and getting rid of all the waves that I put in the blade earlier. This particular blade is going to have a curve in it. It's going to curve upwards, and I need to start encouraging it to curve that way as I'm working on it. Now if I keep hammering on the blade and make it too thin, it'll be hard to put that curve in later without warping the blade. Alright, the blade's right about where I want it. It's about the right thickness. What I'm doing now is just kind of fine-tuning, and I'm going over it, making sure it's nice and straight, just getting any high spots out of it. Okay, now I need to make a guard. This will be the separation between the blade and the handle. I'm just going to put an indentation here to separate the blade from the handle, so there won't be a sharp edge of the blade against your finger when you're holding it. Now that I have a separation between the blade and the handle, the blade has a thick spot right where it used to transition into the handle. So I need to thin that out a little bit and make it match the rest of the blade. Now I'm fine-tuning the handle. I'm just going to give it a nice taper as it moves up toward the blade. Alright, at this point I'm just going through and just fine-tuning everything. I've got to be careful that I don't let the steel get too cold. With the blade being this thin, it's possible to force it to bend into shape, even if it's too cold. But the problem is I could develop stress fractures in the steel. So as long as I just keep it to light taps and just fine-tuning, I'll be okay. As I'm hammering here, you can see thin flakes of steel coming off. What that is mill scale, and that forms in the forge. When you get the steel hot enough, it causes oxygen molecules to bond to the steel. I'm just going to round the edges off a little bit so it'll be a little more comfortable to hold. Alright, next I'm going to take this wooden mallet and I'm going to put a curve in the handle. and I'm going to put it on this 2x4, and I've cut out a little bit of a curve, and when I hit it with the wooden mallet, that will keep it from getting scarred up. I needed to hold it by the blade to do this, and as you can see, these tongs that I'm using were not ideal. They kind of let it slip all around. I need to make a set that'll work better for this. I'm pretty much done with the forging. I've let it air cool to normalize the steel, and this is what it looks like at this point. It's a little bit rough, but we're going to change all that. In the forging process, I got the blade in the general shape that I wanted. Now I'm going to fine tune that. I'm going to take off all the rough edges, just make some nice smooth lines. Alright, putting the blade back in the forge one last time. I'm going to heat treat it, get the blade nice and hot, a nice even heat, and then quench it in water really quick, and that'll make the blade as hard as it can be. I'm getting really close to being done with this blade now. I'm just going to polish it and sharpen it, and then it'll be finished. Alright, I'm putting an edge on it now, and we'll give it the final test and see how well it cuts.